Line 5, also known as the Eglinton Crosstown, is finally here after almost 15 difficult years of construction and never-ending controversy. With 19 kilometers and 25 stations, this is a huge addition to Toronto's puny rapid transit network, although I'm hesitant to call it rapid given how many speed restrictions there are on the network right now. On the subject of slow trains, this line is similar to the newly opened Line 6 Finch West. Line 5 is also a light rail line with standard gauge track and overhead wires, though with the price tag of a subway line. Could a subway line have been built for the same price? Perhaps. The first few months of Line 6's existence have been far from great, so that brings us to the million, or should I say multi-billion-dollar question, is Line 5 any better? Let's find out.
Caledonia Station. Change here to connect TTC buses and GO Transit services.
The opening day for the line was quite peculiar. In contrast to the Line 6 opening, there was no celebration and no memorabilia, even though this line is definitely more important to Toronto than Line 6. Just look at the difference between the posts. It's still crazy to me how the public first learned about the opening day through an anonymous source leaking this information as if the whole project were a covert CIA mission. But it's no secret that the slow construction of the line has caused lots of embarrassment at multiple levels of government, and the low-key, last-minute opening date is a clear reflection of the circumstances. I could go on talking about why and how the delays came to be, but that's not the purpose of this video. Rather, let's focus on the present and the future of this line. Alright, so there's an issue with this train, so we're moving to the next. I know. Okay, push in here.
Yeah, I hope so. What the heck? Try to move it.
So the doors will be closing.
Please stand clear of the doors.
Let's go! It's about time!
At every station on Line 5, there is level boarding between the platform and the train. The vehicles on this line are Bombardier Flexity vehicles, different from the new Alstom vehicles on Line 6, but very similar to those on the streetcar network. In fact, the Bombardier vehicles on this line only have a driver cab on one side, meaning that two sets have to be coupled facing away from each other to be able to operate on a light rail line like Line 5, which generally requires drivers to switch sides at the terminal stations, unlike streetcars which always loop around at terminal stations. So this is Keelesdale Station on Keele Street. Get up here. Escalators aren't working, but oh well. Not much going on around here. The new vehicles are equipped with lots of cameras for the driver. There are cameras between the train sets, between the doors, and at every station, multiple cameras giving multiple views of the platform. These cameras act as extra sets of eyes for the driver. Unlike Line 6, which is mostly outdoors and at grade, the core and arguably the most important portion between Mount Dennis, the westernmost station, and Laird is underground, fully separate from any traffic.
Caledonia Station. Doors will open on the left. Les portes vont s'ouvrir sur la gauche.
Ligne 5 vers station Keelesdale.
The wayfinding along the Line 5 stations is some of the best I've ever seen. There are maps of the surrounding area, the station exits, and nearby bus lines. The station platforms are equipped with sensors that detect any obstruction on the track. As of the opening date, the trains are operating at up to 60 km per hour. However, in the near future, these speeds will go up to 80 km per hour, which is the intended operating speed. Between Mount Dennis and Laird, the tunneled portion, the trains are driven automatically. At Laird Station, drivers have to switch between automatic and manual. The portion between Laird and Kennedy is at grade and doesn't have full transit signal priority, which is the same problem as Line 6. And we all know how bad the lack of transit signal priority has been for Line 6. On the at-grade portion, the speeds are clearly slower. Intersections are approached at a snail's pace, around 25 km per hour. At the Don Valley station, we temporarily go underground. This station will serve as a future interchange for the Ontario line. Similar to Line 6, the owner, Metrolinx, maintainer, Crosslinx, and operator of Line 5, TTC, are all different.
Barely. What's that? Wow.
From an operations standpoint, the delays on the at-grade portion will very easily affect the entire line. After all, the trains delayed on the at-grade portion can't magically catch up even once they're underground. The TTC could add some additional short-term services that remain on the underground portion, or they could add some slack in the timetable so that the trains miraculously remain on time, because that worked wonderfully for Line 6. Obviously, these are terrible solutions, but this is what we're stuck with right now.
Well, here we go. Finally, we're done.
I was gonna do like a ride-along video, but like the battery can't handle that. I've got other stuff I gotta do. Okay, so you do have a 10K line up.
We're going through.
That's fine. There you go. Full power. I'll give you that. Why don't you go on kind of like a sci-fi like I'm hoping the underground stations once further on the line are not quite so freezing.
So cool. You just drive in. There wasn't anyone else.
I don't know how long this is.
You should go there. Wow. Around the other way.
It's actually not that bad. It's just everyone's up on the edge.
That's fine.
I got time to kill. How worse if I'm late on the footage, I can just send them more. I gotta get footage and all that, but like that worse, it's like I'm
One of the great things about Line 5 is how connected it is to other important transit lines. At Mount Dennis Station, you can easily transfer to the GO Transit Kitchener Line and Union Pearson Express. At the Cedar Vale, formerly known as Eglinton West, and Eglinton stations, you can transfer to Line 1. And finally, at Kennedy Station, you can transfer to Line 2 and the GO Transit Stouffville line. Work is also underway to construct a new GO platform at Caledonia Station for transfers to the GO Transit Barrie line. Countless bus routes across the length of Line 5 have also been added or modified in preparation for Line 5. 6 new bus routes have been introduced alongside the new Line 5. The 18 Caledonia, 27 Jane South, 34 Eglinton, 151 Leslie North, 158 Trethewey, and 334 Eglinton night bus. Although you've probably heard this 1,000 times before, activating full transit signal priority on the new light rail lines, let alone existing streetcar lines, should have been a non-negotiable requirement from day one of the project. We cannot allow transit vehicles filled with hundreds of people to be slowed down just because prioritizing them would hurt the feelings of drivers. We've been obsessed with the idea that just building new transit lines will get more people on transit, and indeed, building the infrastructure is the hardest and most expensive part, so no, I'm not saying the line shouldn't have been built. However, the transit service has to be as good as possible. If you want people to happily switch and, more importantly, remain loyal to transit, transit has to be as fast as possible and, of course, better than driving. Even the existing transit lines are not getting this right, and this puts the future of high-quality rapid transit in the Greater Toronto Area at risk. It's also worth mentioning that an extension of Line 5 to the west, all the way to the border with the city of Mississauga, and perhaps all the way to Toronto Pearson Airport, is already under construction. Unlike the eastern end, it'll be underground or above ground, separate from road traffic. Even though the price of doing so is higher, at least we know that the issues on the eastern end won't be a problem on the west extension. Now that Lines 5 and 6 are open, the focus in the coming months will be on improving these lines and applying the lessons learned in the last few months. This is a critical period to push the government for much needed changes across the two lines, as the future of Toronto's transit system depends on it. Thanks for watching.